For those that make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it means you're among the elite, the greats of the game. Hager is the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket, in America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail dresses you for style, comfort, and class. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season. Go to Hager.com for every occasion. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com.
Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a mid-size SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander boasts 3 spacious rows with available seating for up to 8. Its available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims delivers the power, acceleration, and efficiency so your family can take on any adventure. There's even a standard digital key, a panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen, so you always arrive on time. Live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. Wednesday, December 13th, Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. It's playoff time. I am joined by Matthew Betz, Jason Moore, a couple of sad Dynasty folks.
Me? I'm not sad, dude. I'm happy. I got in a couple leagues. I squeaked right through. We talked about this on DFS, where I played a lot of Tua on that 2-game slate, but I needed Tua to have a terrible night to sneak into the playoffs in my main Dynasty league. And I did, so it all worked out. But you guys are not so happy? What's going on there?
No, we're not happy. You're trying to squeak into playoffs. We're trying to get bye weeks over here. Come on. We're locked and loaded, and in all. So I play. There's 2 main Dynasty leagues that I care about. Those are, that all the people that are in our lives are competing with and in both of those leagues, set up for the bye. One of them back to back champ. You know the league. And man, last night sucked. Or Monday night. It was just the worst. Everything that needed to go wrong went wrong between my matchups, my opponent's matchups, players scoring against them. I was just whatever. I lost all the buys. So I'm in the playoffs, but now that bye week is just such – people don't realize how important that is.
Emotionally.
It just means you need one – if you make the playoffs with the bye, just one win and you're in the championship. It's incredible.
And you get a week of stress-free life. You're just – who cares what happens to your team that week? They can underperform. It doesn't matter. You don't have to walk around, being short with your family and and stressed out of your mind. So it's great. But yeah,
it's not fun when you have to look at your players and have a pep talk and say, "Hey, I know you guys have been sitting in the 2 seed for a long time." Like I was in a league where I was the 2 seed for the last 8 weeks, and then we get kicked out on the very final play because Tua doesn't want to complete passes. Like it was rough, but. Our conversations with my team, I'm sure with your Dynasty teams out there, is to say, you know what? Maybe we'll get some momentum. Like those are the kind of mind games that you have to tell yourself if you didn't get the bye. So Jason, I don't know how you're preparing your teams, but also the other end of it is that we get knocked out this week.
Yeah, I'm preparing them with pessimism. I'm reeling right now, but we're gonna do the best we can, make the right start-sit decisions, hopefully, and have Lady Luck on our side. Once you get to the play, like. It's one of those things, I've always said this off air, like getting to the playoffs takes skill. It really does. If you're skilled, you should get to the playoffs the majority of the time. Winning the championship, that's like, takes a little bit of luck because you got all good teams going head to head. You just need the chips to fall the right way on such a short timeline where it's like you need Lady Luck on your side in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know that there's some leagues that do 2-week playoffs, and some people are really for that, but there is something exciting to say, everything I have, I'm going toward these one matchup this one weekend. So, week 15, we're here. We're going to do a Dynasty edition of Keep Trade Cut, a segment that, Jason, I thought about adding it up and then I just quickly said no, but you've done a lot of Keep Trade Cuts in your life.
I have done a lot of Keep Trade Cuts in my life. Thank you for not wasting the company dollar and having you do that level of research. There are way too many.
Yeah. It's so we'll be going through some of those. We'll do a quick question and then a take it or leave it. If you want to be a part of the community, go to jointhefoot.com. Be a part of everything we're doing. Betz and I did a live Discord event earlier this week. So if you're a member, man, there's so many different people that you can connect with, Dynasty channels, off-season stuff. And we have some really fun updates coming up for the Foot Clan in 2024. Jason, I know Footballers HQ, that a lot of the dev team is hard at work on some upgrades, some different things, but anything you want to tease for the people?
I mean, we have a ton of stuff coming up. We've got an in-season app that will be launching hopefully right before the end of the season, primarily for next year, but it's going to have all of our resources, everything from the Join the Foot, all of our premium tools. We want to make sure that things are easy, and we want to make sure everything is all under one roof. So all of the tools that we have on the Fantasy Footballers, these are what we use personally. We build what works. We build what helps us win. And we want it to be as easy and seamless as possible. I think over the last many years, we've kind of, you go here or you go there, and, you get this app or that app. And we're trying to, here pretty soon, launch something that is much more universal, easy, transparent, and as successful as always.
Yeah. And so we're going to, in just a little bit, as we go into 2024, there's lots of fun updates. We'll even transition to talk about the Dynasty Pass, which a lot of prospect evaluation is right around the corner. We'll be talking about that on this very podcast. But I have a quick question for us, and I think the question is phrased just very clearly. Who has been the worst best player on your Dynasty team? AKA, they carry a big name, but they have cratered your teams in 2023. The worst best player, Betz, from your Dynasty team.
Yeah, this one, really hurts because this player was awesome for a few years in a row. Considered a top 15 option week in and week out. Not anymore. Chris Godwin has 4 weeks this season as a top 36 fantasy wide receiver. He's in his prime. He's still 27 years old, which is just crazy. And if you would have told me Mike Evans would come out and do what he did with Baker Mayfield, I'd say, oh, sweet. Chris Godwin, maybe he's not as good, but he's at least a wide receiver 2 for your team, at least a flex option. He literally hasn't even been that for you in fantasy this year. So he is actively hurting your squad if he's in your starting lineup, which is crazy. I didn't see this in the range of outcomes where, Mike Evans would come out and literally just ice Chris Godwin. Like, they have one fantasy relevant wide receiver. It is Mike Evans. And Chris Godwin, he's out there, he's seeing some targets, but he's not getting enough volume to capitalize, and he's not finding the end zone, which has really hurt him this year. So Chris Godwin has been a big time disappointment for me this year.
Do you think he still carries name value at all, or is he kind of just flooding into this ambiguous PPR flex part of his career?
I think he still has some name value, and I think when we look forward to the offseason, the discussion around Chris Godwin, and people are getting smarter every year with fantasy data and research and stuff like that. We're going to talk about, well, he saw X number of targets without a touchdown, or with only one touchdown so far. We'll see what he does over the last month. But, he's going to be one of those positive regression candidates that everyone's going to tell you about. So I think he'll still have some value. I mean, like I said, still only 27 years old. He's got a couple more years in Tampa with his new contract. So I think there's still some value with Chris Godwin, beyond this year.
Oh, so he's basically Deontay Johnson of what we said last year, and then Deontay Johnson this year is still Deontay Johnson?
So maybe that is actually, that's an interesting comp. Do you see that path for Chris Godwin, or do you think he will be a guy that bounces back?
It just matters what they're doing at quarterback next year. So that's just a massive question mark beyond, Mike Evans, beyond this year. But yeah, it's super disappointing for a player that's been rock solid in the past. Jason, this is a player that I've also had on teams, so I am in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, this is a player who, coming out of college, I loved. In flashes with different quarterbacks, he's been great. I mean, really, really good for fantasy. And last year, when he got to play with his starting quarterback, he scored 15.9 PPR points per week. Without him, he was down to 7. And I'm talking about my guy, Marquise Hollywood Brown. And I couldn't wait to have Hollywood reunited with Kyler. When you're scoring 16 fantasy points a game with Kyler last year, with an offense that looked worse than the current system in place that Kyler got to inherit. And I know he's coming off the injury and he's newer to the system and yada, yada, yada. But I was really hopeful for a big bada boom. I traded for Hollywood in a couple of different places, expecting the end of season run because, this is now there's no DeAndre Hopkins. You add Kyler. They need this weapon. He's always had, he's averaged 10 targets a game with Kyler before Kyler came back. While Kyler was gone in this new system, he had so many weeks where he was 10, 11 targets. So, I mean, every single thing seemed to really line up with Hollywood being a special fantasy asset. I know I recommended him. I went out, put my own money where my mouth is, and he has really disappointed me. I mean, he's just been straight up trash. Ever since, Kyler's been back, 3 games, I think, and, you've got one of those games with a goose, one of those games with 2 points. Actually, it was 4 games because he came back for the Atlanta game where he had 3 points. So, and he's been in my lineup in a handful of those games. So you're not talking about a guy who's disappointing with 7 or 8 fantasy points. You're talking about someone that's causing you to lose. Now they've got the bye week. Maybe they figured things out, but you come back and you've got the San Francisco 49ers after the bye. The wide receiver position, they don't necessarily lock it down, but it's not a great matchup. You don't just go, oh, yay, I get to play the Niners' great defense. That's not where you want to put Hollywood in after having seen him underperform. And so it's like, okay, then I've got to get to the second round of the playoffs, and he's got to do something this week to give me confidence to play him for the final 2 weeks. So TBD, the final 2 weeks of the playoffs, Chicago and Philadelphia in championship week. I could see him in my lineup for that one. But he has disappointed me. And if he doesn't turn it around, everybody who has him is going to end up out of the playoffs.
That first 5-week pace when it was Josh Dobbs, I mean, it was 142 targets, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, he was awesome. We were playing him in DFS because he was super cheap. And since then, I mean, since week 6, the pace is just, 55 receptions. I'm not even going to hit the button for that. 582 yards. It's been really bad. We brought up before, Jason and I have also talked about the splits of zone and man and whatever that is. My question for him, so he's a free agent after this year. He's 26 and a half years old. What kind of deal does he get? Because
so he's really, really interesting. Wide receiver free agents are not plentiful, at least big name ones. You've got a handful this year. I expect most of them to re-sign with their current teams, like Michael Pittman. You'll have T. Higgins on the market. He'll probably get the largest contract, but I think that there are always wide receiver needy teams. And if you can't draft one, I think of like Carolina and the Panthers. Like they need a wide receiver. They've got an aggressive owner that's going to say, we have to get Bryce Young a player. I'm going to overspend for someone just like they did with Adam Thielen to get some kind of talent in. Maybe they go out and get T. Higgins, but T might not want to go there. He'll probably have his choice of best destination plus best money. That's the type of location I could see Hollywood going to, and I would not be excited about that. It's like I would much rather him take a Brandon Cooks type of deal and be with a good quarterback. If he plays with Mahomes on something cheap, but I don't expect that. I think he'll end up in a bad situation. So I'm not bullish on his prospects going forward. And I know, Kyle, you've talked about Hollywood and his man versus zone and what the NFL is morphing into. Do you really buy into, tell that little story in case people aren't familiar with whatever you believe about the situation with Hollywood? And do you actually believe that? Are you confident in that analysis?
Not as that's the only piece of the puzzle. And we brought up a couple of weeks ago, I think it was more than a month, that basically with the Cardinals over the last year, he's been really effective against man coverage. And right now, about, most of the teams run zone 70+% of the time. Now, it's really hard when you start putting man versus zone coverage splits and you start adding that in where he is on the field and who travels. All of those kind of matchups is just a piece of the puzzle. So I don't think he's done, given his age, given the right environment. He's just a much more volatile player. And the rest of the free agents, Pity City feels super safe, but T. Higgins, Gabe Davis, Hollywood Brown. I mean, it's a wild group that you're like, I just don't know where this group's going to go. But Betz, any thoughts on Hollywood?
Yeah, just one last thing on him. We kind of just briefly have mentioned it over the course of the last, few weeks, but like, he's not healthy, right? I mean, he's dealing with this heel injury he's been on the injury report for a couple of weeks with. Left the game early 2 weeks ago before their bye week against the Steelers. They come out of their bye week and they had a practice on Monday, and they didn't have any official reporting, but he was the only one, according to beat reporters, not on the field for practice. So it almost feels like we need a week where he just like doesn't play again, so we know not to start him this week. And then maybe we get those matchups like Jason talked about, week 16, week 17, where if you do get through and you still have him, then maybe we feel more confident in his health. But I think that's one major question mark right now on Hollywood Brown.
I feel like the players that we mentioned are wide receivers because they're volatile, that we wish we had a mulligan spot in our lineup that just says, hey, I know this guy could go off, the Gabe Davis of the world, Hollywood Brown. Mine is Jahan Dotson because I never, ever, ever knew when to start him. And yet I was in a position where if in a double flex league, like I want this guy on my roster, in a couple of weeks, he did go off on my bench. So I feel like I never got Jahan Dotson right at all. But before the season, if I told you, hey, Sam Howell's going to be, one of the top passers in the league in terms of volume and passing yardage, and Jahan Dotson would be third in routes run in the league behind Keenan Allen and Garrett Wilson, what would you say?
Wow, I would say I'm all in. I mean, Dotson's good. You give him that many opportunities, that's great. He is such a funny dynasty asset. In our champ league, we had major regrets. We obviously had the 12th pick because, yada, yada, won the championship. And at not this rookie draft, but the prior rookie draft, at the 112, we were staring down a decision. First round NFL draft pick, Jahan Dotson, or we had an aging Travis Kelce, who at that time hadn't had the monstrous season of last year. And we loved, I say we because it's Mike and I's co-managed team, and we loved the talent of this guy named Trey McBride. And so we drafted Trey McBride over Jahan Dotson and spent all last year kicking ourselves, feeling so stupid. Like, why would we not take a first-round wide receiver who we thought was talented? We didn't think he was as talented as Trey McBride, but, like, he's a wide receiver. It's more important. And now at this point, it's like, I think we made the right decision, right? Would you rather have Trey McBride or Jahan Dotson?
It's team dependent, but I mean, Trey McBride he's the man.
I don't think it's team dependent at all.
Yeah.
I think it's very clearly
he is the
McBride
man.
to me. I mean, we are desperate for tight ends that can actually be difference makers. Kelsey's on his way out. I mean, he has been the first read in the offense for Kyler, and he's looked incredible. So I think I would have McBride certainly over Jahan Dotson at this point.
Yeah, and I was fortunate in that league that Jason passed. I got Dotson at the 204 because he fell. So I felt really good about where I got him, what I've gotten so far. But this year, I thought he was going to turn into an actual asset. Let me give you one more stat. Over the last decade, here are the first-round wide receivers that played at least 12 games. That's it. I'm not giving you any other qualifier. They were a first-round wide receiver, and they played 12 games. PPR points per game. If you look at the very bottom, it is a dumpster fire of people that you're like, oh my gosh. I remember Laquan Treadwell, 2.5 PPR points per game. Jalen Reagor, good job, Eagles. N'Keal Harry, Cordell Patterson, Nelson Aguilar, Tavon Austin, John Ross, Philip Dorsett, Josh Doxson, and then at super low, way down there is Jahan Dotson. And I bring that name up because the next lowest names on this list of PPR points per game in their second year are names like Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Parker, who eventually broke out, Mike Williams, and Hollywood Brown. So way down there in the second year, there are guys that have completely busted. So before going into an only Jahan Dotson show, do you think that he can revive himself to at least be a top 30 wide receiver? I'm not asking for much.
I don't think he's going to. I mean, if you set the bar really low, could he be a top 30? Sure. But the situation, I don't think changes. I believe that they believe in Sam Howell. Sam Howell's done enough, the way that the team's talked about him. I know they've got a pretty good draft pick, and things could change, but as of this moment, I think Sam Howell's their quarterback next year. Terry McLaurin's under contract. They love Curtis Samuel. So this is probably going to be kind of a somewhat similar situation while they try to work on the defense and the offensive line. And, I just think you're going to end up with the same quarterback, wide receiver group, and I don't know why it would be different. It's not like Jahan Dotson isn't good now, or even Terry McLaurin for that matter. So now are we just hoping for a coordinator change?
Yes.
And Bieniemy is the problem?
I want condensed targets. And obviously in Kansas City when he was there, it was Kelsey and everybody else. And here it's been everybody do whatever. I mean, Betz is showing me that De'Ami Brown actually has a higher targets per out run this year than Jahan Dotson.
Actually, Bieniemy's doing the same thing. It's Kelsey and everybody else.
Yes.
But they don't have Kelsey, so it's just everybody. It's just shotgun to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hold. You're not going to get fair value, and at least there is tantalizing upside for the future for this player, I think. But really disappointing second year out of Jahan Dotson. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll get to some keep, trade, cut.
To be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame means you're among an elite class representing the greats of the game. The gold jacket given to those in the Pro Football Hall of Fame represents their achievements of greatness that only a few have reached. Hager has been the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket since 1978 and is America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. You don't have to be inducted to the Hall of Fame to elevate your style and dress like the best. Hager has you covered for every occasion. From the big interview, big promotion, or next wedding season, Hager gives you the confidence and look that you deserve. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail meets the demand for style, comfort, and class. That's why the greats wear Hager. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season at Hager.com. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com for every occasion.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
All right, we're about to jump into some keep, trade, cut. And Jason, I tried to go back to find the very first keep, trade, cut on the show.
Yeah.
I can go all the way back to 2016 and just know that there's been a lot of these, but for dynasty purposes, I do want to at least clarify. When we're saying keep, we're saying I want this person on my team. When we're saying trade, we want some more value. When we say cut, we're not saying cut this player. We're just saying their value could be lower. And I say that because I got a question a month or two ago from somebody that said, should I cut Dalton Kincaid? And they were talking about Dynasty. And I said,
what?
And I said, please, I beg you, do not do this. This person messaged me back 2 months later and said, I took your advice. I said, good, you're learning how to play Dynasty. So everybody's on a different spectrum. Just need to clarify. Don't cut these players. We're just we're trying to go a little deeper on them. So let's get into it.
Keep, trade, cut.
All right, for our first one, I've got this is so simple, super easy. There's no way we're going to differ on this, guys. But these are a group of second-year wide receivers. I'm calling them, they're brimming with hope, but they are filled with questions. And that is Drake London, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave. Keep, trade, cut.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you at least said it, because when I first saw this one in the doc, I was like, what are you doing? What are you like? There's no question. All three of us will be aligned here. There's a clear order of these players. You're going to keep Garrett Wilson, trade Chris Olave, and cut Drake London. That will be the order for all three of us. If not, I will have a shocked face that the listening audience cannot see. I think that, you just look at the systems, you look at the quarterback's future in place, because, Garrett Wilson, obviously, unfortunately, he's got Zach Wilson right now, but obviously Aaron Rodgers will be there next year. We see that as a massive upgrade. The system in place for Atlanta is terrible for Drake London. It's funny because I think if you switched these guys as teams, I think and maybe Garrett Wilson, if he was on the Saints, maybe he would be the keep over the alternative Jet, but I do think that the situation dictates even more than the talent here, because Drake London's talented, Garrett Wilson's talented, Chris Olave's talented, but I want Garrett Wilson's talent the most, Chris Olave's situation the second most, and Drake London to be freed someday.
That would be the hope. I agree that Garrett Wilson to me is the keep. In other words, I mean, you're seeing it, right? Like, you just watch him play. He is the passing offense. And with the contract that Aaron Rodgers, the GM, basically has for his other guys, with Randall Cobb, who will probably step away, and Allen Lazard is the wide receiver too. Like, Lazard's there next year, which means unless they do something crazy in the free agency market or the NFL draft, he doesn't really have target competition, right? Garrett Wilson for next year when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, which everything says he's coming back. So I think when you think about playing this game for a year or two in advance, I mean, Garrett Wilson's situation just looks so locked in moving forward, assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt again, because that would be just max pain 2 years in a row for those of us that have Garrett Wilson. But they're all incredible. I agree, though, for me, Garrett Wilson is the keep.
I think Garrett Wilson, between these three, will be the most heavily targeted. When we say who has the best shot 150 targets next year, I think we'd say Garrett Wilson. I want to give some pushback to say what his situation is. And obviously we haven't seen Rodgers really be good for fantasy football in over 2 years. So there is that part of it. All three of these players will have different quarterbacks potentially next year. Desmond Ridder might be the one that just maybe they stick with, but I hope they don't. I hope we lose.
Yeah, but they won't have a good one.
I know, but I'm saying there is a potential for his quarterback to change, and they have a stopgap or they have a rookie. And do you think it's better than Ridder?
I think it's absolutely sideways. One of the things I've been hammering on the last few years is that these middling quarterbacks do not fix the problem, ever.
Derek Carr.
They never do. Derek Carr did not come in and fix the problem for Chris Olave. He's been blah. Like they just don't ever fix the problem. Now, if Kirk Cousins, because of his injury, is moved on from, like, I don't see him as middling. Kirk Cousins is not Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins is straight up good. If for some reason because of the Achilles, the Vikings move on and he's a free agent, okay, but that's not a stopgap. That's a future. The Falcons do not have a good enough pick, I do not believe, to have a sensational rookie come in. And there is not a quarterback, a middling veteran guy that will come in and fix things. I know you're a Falcon. Okay, maybe you've got you could try to give me a quarterback and ask if that will fix things. But to my knowledge and belief, I think you're in the worst situation of all fandom, which is you're in purgatory.
I already knew that part.
You're not bad enough to get good, and you're not good enough to be relevant. So, I mean, we spent a long time there as Cardinal fans.
Kyle.
I get this. This is my life. I understand.
Yeah. Do you have a quarterback that you think could specifically come in and fix this situation?
What if the Falcons, this is speculation, but what if their quarterback next year is Justin Fields?
Okay, so they would have to trade for him.
Correct.
Because they're not going to cut Justin Fields.
Right, because the Bears could trade him. They could take a quarterback and have two, but they also have a valuable asset. It's at least something that I think...
I don't think he would... I'm going to stick to my guns. Middling quarterbacks don't change it. I mean...
You think he's
a
middling
I know DJ
quarterback?
Moore... Yeah. Passing-wise, he's a middling quarterback. And I think systems can change it. Like, I think that you have a much better chance of Drake London getting good by finding a new coordinator, a new play caller, a new scheme designer than a quarterback. Because if Justin Fields comes to this team run by Arthur Smith, I'm not convinced that it's going to be any better. It's going to be a low passing volume. He'll get a huge target percentage that you're still disappointed with, and yada, yada.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to defend the Falcons at all. Please hear me out, or Drake London. I just think that Jason brought up earlier, if he was in a different situation with the Saints or the Jets, I think we'd be a lot closer, because I think talent-wise, none of us are saying, oh, there's something wrong, he's not good enough. Obviously, these guys were all taken back-to-back, like right there in the beginning of the first round. So their targets per out run, their yards per out numbers are still everything that we want. So my last question for this group is, Garrett Wilson, dynasty-wise, was kind of crowned already as a top 5 guy last year before he'd done it. Do you guys still view him as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, where Chase and Jefferson seem to be guys that we've clearly locked in? We had A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb ahead of him in that tier, and I think we'd put CeeDee Lamb ahead of him still. But does he belong as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver?
I think it's close. 6, 7, 5, somewhere in there. But like, the names that I would even kind of just consider him around that you maybe be debating would be like, I mean, we talked about Tyreek Hill obviously a bunch, but he's older. We've talked a lot about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know that he is necessarily the same like alpha ceiling. I mean, he's been incredible, so you can't really say anything bad. He's a name that I would throw in that mix. And then Jalen Waddle's a guy too that, with Tyreek Hill there, it doesn't seem like he'll ever truly pop off for the next year or two, but we know he's insanely talented and still super young. So anywhere in that 5, 6, 7 range to me makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think probably closer to the 7. Like, for instance, Amon-Ra, great name you brought up. I would definitely take Amon-Ra St. Brown over Garrett Wilson. His situation is more secure, more known, and I don't need anything better than Amon-Ra. I mean, sure, I would love to have Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, but Amon-Ra is as solid as they come. So I'm happy to take him above Garrett Wilson. Sometimes we get too intrigued with what could be,
yes,
and forget getting what is. It's like Amon-Ra is great for fantasy almost every week. Garrett Wilson could be, but he's not where Amon-Ra is.
The ages of these players are still, super young. Garrett Wilson, 23.3. Olave, he's 23.5. I feel like he's probably aged 5 years just in all the unrealized air yards that have been piling up of just, hey, what could I have done on the field? Those don't count for fantasy. And Drake London's only 22. But we'll have some good offseason debates. I mean, the top 10, there are some guys that are just falling out. Like, I don't think we put Cooper Kupp anywhere close to there. T. Higgins, I don't think we'd put as a top 10. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams. I mean, the landscape of what wide receiver, 8 to 15 looks very different than it did a year ago. So will be some good conversations this offseason. The next one is
just to toot our own horn here just a little bit. I mean, we were talking before the season, early in the season, about how like Devontae Adams is the perfect candidate to get out of. Everyone wanted him. He was a top 10 dynasty asset. He was still on fire, looking great. And we recommended people trading him for a young stud plus a 1, and I saw a lot of people that did that. And now, sometimes it's too late. You know what I mean? Like now, you're not going to be able to get that deal done. So hopefully that worked out for people.
Yeah, I want to say it was one of my Dynasty bold predictions was Adams and Kupp are outside the top 20 wide receivers in Dynasty ADP this time next year. And maybe that's a little extreme, but obviously they're depreciating assets. Let's talk about running backs. And these guys are at the age that it's really hard because you don't want to be left holding the bag. I'm calling them elderly running backs. They're not that old, but they're old in Dynasty circles. David Montgomery, 26.5 years old. Joe Mixon, 27.4 years old. And Alvin Kamara is 28.4. So keep, trade, cut these 3 running backs.
And Betz, you're first.
This is tough because I love the skill set of Kamara where he can still catch the football and be very good for fantasy even when he's getting to an age that you're definitely worried about, at the running back position. Joe Mixon, I think he's got 1 year left and then his dynasty value is gonzo, basically. And David Montgomery, we would think maybe Jahmyr Gibbs comes into next year and starts to really carve out more of a role. That said, I think David Montgomery is locked in for this team. They love him. They love what he does for the team. So I would keep him because I don't think you get the value that you would normally get on the trade market. I would trade Alvin Kamara with the name value, and I would cut Joe Mixon, aka I see the value declining very quickly.
Okay. I think Kamara does carry the biggest name value because what he's done this year has just been so consistent. Missed the first 3 games, suspension, and then carried teams with just tons of targets. So despite his age, I think people still are interested in acquiring Alvin Kamara, knowing, man, his agent did a great job, by the way. Like, his contract is ridiculous for at least the next 2 years. The dead cap money, they're not going to be able to get out of it. So I think Alvin Kamara is the trade away. And right now, if you wanted to trade Alvin Kamara, you get a first plus. Like, you're not just getting that's like insane for a 28-year-old running back to be able to get more than a first. So yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you. I have David Montgomery. I think I have 1, maybe 2 years. Where Mixon, I think you have 1 year left, and maybe Chase Brown eats into the workload next year.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made here that Alvin Kamara should be the keep. We're all in agreement, it seems, that Joe Mixon is the easy cut of these 3.
But he's been good this year.
Joe Mixon's been very good. This is not like, just like you said, the warning at the top of the segment, this isn't saying cut Joe Mixon. This is saying of these 3, Joe Mixon is the least valuable dynasty asset between those 3. And maybe Cincinnati going forward is the best offense, and maybe next year Joe Mixon has the best season. He has 1 year left on the deal. But Alvin Kamara with 2 years left, and I think it's just a matter of, like, David Montgomery has 2 years left. So I don't care about the ages. I really don't. When it comes to running backs, I care about the contracts. David Montgomery is 26. Alvin Kamara is 28. Sure, maybe Alvin Kamara loses it quicker because he gets older and whatever, but usually these pass-catching type of running backs, they can age gracefully towards 30. I just care who's going to score more fantasy points over their contract, because I think at the end of both of these contracts, neither running back gets another relevant fantasy deal. So Kamara, I think right now you'd have to project he scores more fantasy points this year on a per game basis, and I think you'd go into next year saying you project the same thing. So I'm going to keep Alvin Kamara, trade David Montgomery, who I think is still a very good trade for target in Dynasty this offseason. It will be, well, now that Jahmyr Gibbs is not a rookie, they're going to let him really be the lead guy. David Montgomery is older. His contract's going to run. I think he's going to be a great trade for asset. But in this game, I will trade away David Montgomery and cut Joe Mixon.
It's funny, I'm looking at rankings before this season, and Mixon was the highest in their Dynasty, ADP rankings. Then Montgomery, then Kamara. And the Kamara's, remember, not just a suspension, it was signing Jamal Williams and then drafting Kendry Miller. And it's kind of been those guys are irrelevant to the conversation. Not saying they won't be next year, but it's just different than what we would see or way we saw these players playing out. So come on.
Yeah, let me interject here, because this is a free-flowing show where we can do whatever we want. But there were 2 running backs that I think were both very talented, looked unbelievable in preseason this season. Both had day 2 draft capital, and right this second feels like they are toast, they are done, they are dead. What is the dynasty value of Kendry Miller and Tank Bigsby?
I have Tank Bigsby on a team, and I literally thought his value only is going down as the season. Like, I thought it would only rise throughout the season.
Yeah. Oh, dude, he was my bold prediction. I thought he was going to be great this season. I really, really, really did.
They hate him now.
I mean, Dearness Johnson's running ahead of him. And what's funny is, like, he got opportunities. I don't know if you've watched these games and seen Tank Bigsby has, I think, more boneheaded turnover-causing plays this season than maybe any other player in the league, Kadarius Toney notwithstanding. And and he doesn't play that much. It's like the few opportunities he got, it's like he tried to do too much with it. At the beginning of the season, he would just get in a little bit, and so then it's like, oh, this is my chance, and he's going to try to turn up field and catch it a pass and bobble it up, and then it gets picked. And it's like, I think he's done that move 3 times this season where he's gone out to catch a pass, tried to run up field, bobbled it up for an interception. So I think right now the team is just like, I don't think we could trust Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, I think.
But does that mean he's over, or does he have fantasy value going forward?
I mean, he doesn't have much value currently or moving forward, in my opinion, because when these coaching staffs have these situations and they just don't have any growth as a player in year one, entering the offseason, there are reasons for the coaching staff to look for other players to fill the need that player may have, fit for the team. He has not touched the ball more than one time in the last 3 weeks. He has back-to-back games of no touches. His snap counts since the bye week, and normally after bye weeks, late in the season, rookies come on. He has gone the opposite direction. 18% of the snaps, 14%, 3, 1 snap last week. So, I don't know, man. At least with Kendrick Miller, you can tell yourself a story. It's like, hey, he dealt with injury all offseason. He's dealing with an ankle injury all this year. At least there's an injury that you can blame it on. So, I mean, both guys, it's not great, but for me, I'd prefer, I think, Kendrick over Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, Kendry's super young. Wasn't he the youngest running back in the class? He was definitely one of the younger ones. He's 21 and a half right now. But the problem with Bigsby is, week 1, 8 opportunities. He had a goal line touchdown. You're like, okay, well, maybe they're going to give this guy 10 touches a week, and it's just going to go back and forth. No, ETN, they said, I want to give you 25, and it went the opposite direction. But yeah, he's sitting on a dynasty bench. I obviously can't cut him. But I mean, he's a running back, and you just kind of hold and wait and see. But Doug Peterson, he comes from that, Philadelphia way where it's like, hey, we'll put in Boston Scott if we need to. Even if he's not the most talented player, I at least trust him. So let's change gears, and I want to look at some good-looking tight ends, okay? So,
of course you do.
Of course I do.
Classic Kyle.
First one, are these 3 tight ends. Jake Ferguson, who's been a revelation this year. Do you guys know that he leads the NFL in red zone targets?
He would have been up there in my guesses if you just asked, because I watch every week. I mean, he doesn't come down with as many as he should, but every week the opportunity is there right inside the 5.
Yeah, Turd Ferg has been good. Dalton Kincaid, who is just a little bit younger than Jake Ferguson, and Trey McBride, who is the youngest of this group at 24.1. So Jake Ferguson, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride.
I mean, we know it's T. McBee is number 1. We know that, right? It is clearly Trey McBride. First of all,
I think that there'd be people that would disagree. Not.
Oh yeah, the Kincaid truthers are usually carrying pitchforks, and look, Kincaid's been great. Kincaid is a very talented player. He was a very talented player coming in. He had higher NFL draft capital than Trey McBride did in a big tight end year. So you can argue Kincaid is just the better player. I don't see it that way. I just told you, and listeners to this show know, I am very anti-drafting any rookie tight end in the first round. And we just talked about at the 12th pick 2 years ago, we did take Trey McBride in the first round, despite my natural inclination to avoid that. The reason is because he is super talented. He might have been a second-round NFL draft pick, but he was also the first tight end taken in that NFL draft cycle. He was the best prospect coming out, and personally, my evaluation, I liked him more than I liked Kincaid. Now you go, okay, well, what's the situation? The situation right now, maybe next year Stephon Diggs moves on, in which case now you've got a real serious, okay, maybe it should be Kincaid over McBride argument. But right now you're locked to a good quarterback in either situation, but I don't see a way that Trey McBride is worse than the second read in this offense next year. Whereas, this is a situation where, assuming you have Diggs, who is under contract, I believe, the Bills are going to go out and try to add another wide receiver. They want that. The Cardinals are going to go out and try to add another wide receiver. Hollywood is a free agent. So it's like, if they both add a wide receiver of note to the teams, Trey McBride becomes the 2, and Dalton Kincaid becomes the 3. So I would, when I look at fantasy value at tight ends, they're usually always trash, and the only time they're not is when you are the first or second read in an offense. You look through, and that's pretty much an almost universal truth. The only exception I could think to that is George Kittle.
Yeah, real quick on Diggs in that situation, you mentioned the contract. He's there for one more year guaranteed, or as far as we're concerned. We'll see what they do is where he is emotionally. It seems like it's a roller coaster every offseason. But from the contract standpoint, he carries a $31 million dead cap next year. So barring anything crazy, he's on the team. So I think to your point, that makes sense to me. You could order those two guys anyway, and I wouldn't argue with anyone because I see the argument for both guys. So I think I do agree with McBride over Kincaid. The other thing with that is that tight ends don't just have these like 2.2 yards per route run numbers that McBride has. I mean, the guys that have it this year is literally Kittle, Kelsey, McBride among tight ends that have 25 plus targets. So like he's leveling up, so to speak, in this kind of upper echelon. So I think I have it that way, but man, Turd Ferg, if you have him, like I would be super excited to have Jake Ferguson in Dynasty if I had him right now.
And if I look at how successful tight ends work in the NFL, and this is not a knock against Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is, even though he's older, he's still a rookie. I look at Travis Kelce, who you just can't always get to the ground. Kittle, he just blows up tackles. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he just runs people over. Andrews, it's one of those things where he usually just grabs the ball and runs guys over and gets yak boys. Now, Dalton Kincaid is a yak boy when you hit him in stride and he can run away from someone, but he doesn't seem like he plays that way where Trey McBride, every time he gets the ball, he is a punishing man out there that these defenders have a real hard time with his strength, and that's kind of what I have seen in the past really work successfully for fantasy. So you got that targets per route run number, then you got the yak, the difficulty to tackle. He's just a beast out there. But would anybody argue for Jake Ferguson over the other two? Because we still have not given our keep trade cut on these three.
I think it's hard with Ferguson because touchdowns are one of those things that, they're going to vary every once in a while, but you are attached to a quarterback in a system that just sounds awesome. If you've had Dallas players this year, Dallas pass catchers, it's been a fun ride. I think Ferguson would be the one to say he could have a 10 touchdown season, where it's really hard for me to see McBride right now have a 10 touchdown season. But yeah, I think McBride is going to be the keep because he has a very, very soft spot in all of our hearts. I played him in DFS almost every single week. He's been awesome. Kincaid, I think, does carry a lot of name value, though. I think people
big time
see what he's done this year. And I don't think he's a player that you want to move on because there's so many moving parts that his value right now, what it is right now, I feel like he can only ascend in the offseason. I don't think he can decrease in any way. So I would be, Kincaid. I feel like,
he's going to be massively popular this offseason as far as people trying to trade for him or moving up season long rankings, stuff like that. So he's going to be the hotness this summer.
Yeah. So what I would give you some advice is if you have Dalton Kincaid, wait, test the waters, kind of see what people are doing, and then you realize the tight end landscape is pretty tough, and then kind of shop around as there's Diggs rumors, if there's whatever else, if you have him, just to see what you can get, because you'd want a first plus something else because you probably spent a first on him.
Yeah, I'm curious why you put Jake Ferguson in here instead of Sam Laporta, because those three guys are really interesting to me. Sam Laporta versus Dalton Kincaid versus Trey McBride.
We can do whatever we want.
You can make, that's the answer now. And I want to know, what is your keep, trade, cut of Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, and Sam Laporta? Kyle, you're first, because I see your grimacing face not wanting this question asked.
Is Jared Goff the quarterback of this Lions team for more than 2 years?
I think so.
They're winning games with him, right? They're not going to move on.
He needs a contract. But I would say I'm going to keep Sam Laporta because what he did as a rookie is not normal. It's historic. I will I don't want to cut Dalton Kincaid or Trey McBride, but I'm gonna trade Dalton Kincaid and cut Trey McBride. I hate saying that, but I think that who carries the most value in a trade? I think Dalton Kincaid carries more value than Trey McBride right now.
Yes, I agree 100%. When we're keeping Trey McBride and I say it's easy over Kincaid, like I said, the pitchfork Kincaid people are out there, and they might be right. I'm not calling them wrong, but I think the majority of people would take Kincaid over McBride.
Agreed.
So, Betz, where are you at on those three?
Yeah, I think same order as Borg said, just with Laporta and what he's doing, and the situation seems pretty stable moving forward for at least the next year with Laporta. I mean, rookies don't do what he has done, so I would take him straight up over Kincaid at this point in Dynasty rankings, personally. But like you said, I think people just love the Bills, Josh Allen, Kincaid, so I will agree that he's the trade for me.
And I will keep McBride, trade Laporta because I think he does have even more value than Kincaid, and cut Kincaid. But those are three. This is a wonderful thing for fantasy football.
Yes.
Like, there is a legitimate chance next year in redraft that you're not just dealing with like, well, there's two guys or max of three guys. You might have like 6 legit tight ends you want in fantasy football. You know, you'll have Andrews back if Kelsey hasn't retired, and then you've got Dalton Kincaid and Trey McBride and Hawkinson and Sam Laporta. I mean, that right there, if they all hit, and they all could, there's a realistic outcome for that. Now all of a sudden this position is different than it's been in forever. Like, when's the last time you've had that many? I can't ever remember that. Even back to the days where it was like, okay, Gronk and Jimmy Graham and old Antonio Gates. Yeah, like there's just never been 6 tight ends that are weekly locked-in starters ever, and as long as I've played for like 20 years.
Yeah, that'll be something we look in the offseason. It's just like, how does it change how we draft and redraft, but also Dynasty when you have a surplus of tight ends, which we don't really know what to do with. Let's take one more break, and we'll be right back.
To be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame means you're among an elite class representing the greats of the game. The gold jacket given to those in the Pro Football Hall of Fame represents their achievements of greatness that only a few have reached. Hager has been the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket since 1978 and is America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. You don't have to be inducted to the Hall of Fame to elevate your style and dress like the best. Hager has you covered for every occasion. From the big interview, big promotion, or next wedding season, Hager gives you the confidence and look that you deserve. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail meets the demand for style, comfort, and class. That's why the greats wear Hager. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season at Hager.com. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com for every occasion.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
All right, a couple more keep trade cuts here. This one I'm calling stud running backs this year. Are they a stud next year? The 3 running backs are Rachaad White, Kyren Williams, and James Cook. One of these running backs had second-round draft capital, and the other 2 are basically destroying fantasy football. I mean, Rachaad White is the RB5. Kyren Williams is the RB2 in points per game. And James Cook, I threw this in there. I was like, this is a guy that we thought would be a scat back. He's going to have 271 opportunities. That's what he's on pace for this year, which is just nuts. So keep trade cut, Rachaad White, Kyren Williams, James Cook.
This one is brutal.
This is brutal.
So hard to figure out. So I'm just going to kind of talk out loud and see where this goes for me. With Rachaad White and James Cook, they at least have some sort of, when I say significant, I mean like, top 3 round NFL draft capital. Where was Kyren Williams taken? I don't recall. Was he like a round 5 guy, like kind of a later guy? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
He was taken 5th round, 164th overall.
Right. And that, to me, is going to be the tiebreaker where I probably would cut him. But there's this thing in the back of my mind where, like, I know the Rams love Kyren Williams, right? And they have no reason to move on. He's been good. He's been dependable outside of the high ankle sprain, but he's been dependable, a workhorse. They don't really have a ton of picks or cash to, like, go make a splash somewhere. So, like, he fits what they need. Like, it just makes sense to me. So I think he'd be the cut. I don't know. I think I would keep James Cook, and I'd probably trade Rachaad White off of this monster year of opportunity where these running backs that have that but are not quite as efficient tend to give me a little bit of a yellow flag. So I think that's where I would go. I think I'd keep James Cook. I think I'd trade Rachaad White, and I think I would cut Kyren Williams.
Yeah, Kyle, you have come up with a really nasty keep trade cut here because usually draft capital, NFL draft capital, can go a massive way to help dictate your answers and to be more accurate and to be correct. Like it or hate it, draft capital really does factor in and matter to these NFL franchises. But eventually, you see what the franchises do themselves in their commitment to players. And so I think I'm going in complete reverse order of NFL draft capital here. Kyren Williams is their dude.
Yeah.
Kyren Williams is a guy who we were so sad when he fell to the 5th round because Mike and I loved Kyren Williams' Notre Dame tape. We were like, this dude is awesome. NFL didn't see it that way. He fell to the 5th round. Write him off.
He ran slow, I remember.
He's still running the 40,
Yeah,
actually.
His 40 time was 4.65. So it's super disappointing. He's not a top speed breakaway player, but everything else was just so good. There were rumors and reports that, last season, he was kind of going to be their dude and that they loved him. But then he got injured. Like, wasn't it like the first play of the first week of the season?
It was a kick
something
return
like that?
Of the first play of the season.
Yeah, first play of the season, he gets injured, and then you just forgot about him. It's this 5th round rookie that there was just kind of some buzz. You never got to see anything. Cam Akers came on strong at the end of the year after the doghouse in and out affair with Sean McVay. But Kyren Williams is like, I believe he fits the system perfect. They kicked Cam Akers out, and Kyren has done enough to where this is their guy. I think they're committed to him. I also think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are committed to Rachaad White. You watch, so long as this coaching staff stays, and I think they will. Todd Bowles has just, the way he's talked about how important Rachaad White is to them and how he moves the offense, and they've got to get him the ball in space at more and more and more, and then they do. I think I'm going reverse order. I think I'm going to keep Kyren Williams. I'm going to trade Rachaad White off the amazing season, and kudos to him because he has blown away my expectations and my belief in him. And then even though I love James Cook, the touchdown opportunities aren't there for him. And I don't know that they're going to come. On the course of the season, every year, if he's capping out at 5 touchdowns, you're not going to really be happy with his fantasy value as a running back.
I went into this exercise just saying, okay, well, this is easy for me to be against Rachaad White because I liked him from you could draft him really cheap and redraft, but the efficiency has always been a problem. When we've watched Rachaad White, and this maybe it's just me, I don't know if he's great at anything. I think he has good hands, but as a runner, he runs so tall, and yet that whole game against the Falcons this past week, I was like, why does he keep getting chunk gains? And he ran for over 100, Still at 3.7 a carry on the year. So I think Rachaad White carries a ton of value. So I think he feels like the easiest for me to trade right now in terms of the highest value of these three. I think you could go either way with the other ones, but I think I'd rather roll the dice with a higher ceiling in Kyren Williams and just say he's my keep and just say, hey, this guy's the RB2 in points per game. He's basically CMC from a workload perspective, and he's looked awesome. I was so wrong before the season about Kyren Williams. By the way, he was supposed to be one of our final picks in the league of record, and I might have talked Mike out of not taking him. So
who'd you take instead?
I heard.
I think we took Kyler to stash. So that was a mistake.
Worse.
But I think I'll keep Kyren, trade Rachaad White, and then James Cook. You laid it out perfectly, Jason. Between the 20s running backs are just so painful. If there's somebody else that's going to get a goal line role, that's Josh Allen, and then there's somebody else, if it's Latavius Murray or whoever they bring in this next year, there will always be another guy there. So James Cook is fun. He's electric. I wish he was a different dude, but he's not built, right? He's not built to take all the goal line stuff. So any final thoughts? Like, okay, here's my question. Who has the best year in 2024?
Kyren.
I don't know.
Well, of course you don't know.
I think the player most likely to accumulate the most touches to me would be Kyren Williams. So I guess that's the answer.
Yeah, I think Kyren has the highest ceiling. I also think he might have the lowest floor of this group.
That seems fair.
But so it's wild.
He's risky business.
Yeah. All right, last one. This is a quick one. Keep, trade, cut. A really good nap, a really good movie. And I'm saying this movie, like, you think about it for days. It stays with you. It's quotable. So a really good nap, a really good movie, or a really, really good steak.
These are my three favorite things.
I thought of you, Jason.
Oh, man. This is tough.
Because I thought, like, oh, a nap, I can just cut that. And then I think, man, when I've had a really good nap where I feel no responsibilities afterwards, I just got to take a nap, it's a nice feeling.
It is.
Look, a really good movie is fantastic. But even in a really good movie, I can feel bad after one. And a steak, give me a good steak, and that's fantastic. But even a really good steak, I can feel bad after a good steak. Be like, I shouldn't have eaten that giant steak. But a nap? Oh, baby. I'm never feeling bad after a nap. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I got a nap today. I'm keeping the nap. As shocking as it is, the free, you can do it anytime
doesn't have good trade value
option. No, it doesn't have good trade value. So it's got to be either the keep or the cut. I am keeping the nap. So I'm going to trade the really good movie because everyone likes a good movie. Not everyone likes steak. Fools. You should. That's my order.
Betz?
It makes sense to me. I was thinking there's other things in life that can replace a good movie, whatever it is for you, the listener. You can also replace a steak with whatever your favorite food is. It's not, like Jason said, for everyone. So you can't replace 30 minutes of just peace and quiet to yourself, especially when you're dad of multiple kids, as we all are. So a good nap to me is to keep. I will trade the steak and keep the movie.
Well, I got to go contrarian because I do love a good nap, and I will find a place in my life in the day to take a nap. Emma always tells me that. She's like, you will always find time for a nap. But I think a really good movie changes my life, and I quote way too many movies with my kids, so I'm going to keep the movie. I'm going to trade the steak. I like steak, but I think it has a lot of value. And then I will just lose sleep because I think I'm in a lot of sleep debt over the years.
Yeah,
kids.
Yeah.
And you just kind of learn to live with it.
Coffee.
But man, all of these things are great. I just wanted to bring them up. All right, one more segment.
Take it or leave it.
We're going to give a final parting shot, a Dynasty player that is currently starting for your team that will vanish this time next year, which is one of the worst feelings when you assess a roster. And I would encourage you to do this. Assess your roster. If you're in the playoffs, if you're not in the playoffs, you're kind of looking towards 2024 and say, is this player going to be on my team? Is this player going to be helpful next year? So, Jason, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this one breaks my heart. Love the man, love the fantasy asset. He's been on my League of Record team for a couple of years, won a championship with him. But we're wondering if the wheels are falling off. The wheels have fallen off on this season, and it's Austin Eckler. He's going to be an older running back who is not under contract. That just is usually – I mean, this is a situation where maybe with the hockey stick at quarterback, you could have Austin Eckler – finish the season strong, win people one more championship. I could see him legitimately not playing football next year, not getting a contract that is up to the level that he wants, holding out, waiting for an injury or a team or situation to come knocking and have that never happen. Now, that's not what I'm predicting. I'm not like, I think he'll get a contract. I hope he gets a 1-2 year contract to just play with the Chargers again. That's best case scenario. Maybe he will go try to chase a title and say, hey, let me go sign with, the Bills or whoever. I think if he moves teams, his fantasy value gets cut in half, almost in any situation he goes to. So his value to me could hopefully be okay if he re-signs with the Chargers, all the way to kaput, out of the league. He never plays again after this year. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but that's my fear with Eccles.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm just going to quickly say Alexander Mattison. I thought I had 1 year. I thought maybe a year and a half, but really I was only focusing on 1 year. I feel like I got half a year where the opportunities were there. It's not good. He has a contract where he looks like he could be on the team this next year, but they cut him for $4 million. He's just not electric. It's just not going to happen. So Alexander Madison's one of those players that you're going to see on your roster. You're probably not going to be able to start him a ton. And he's just kind of like a spot start in case somebody else is hurt. They're going to bring in somebody else, or Ty Chandler's just a much more electric back. So Alexander Madison is a major disappointment right now for what he could have done this year.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in with the last one here, and it is kind of following Jason's Austin Eckler take with just aging running backs without a contract is usually a recipe for disaster in Dynasty. And that is Derrick Henry, who will be 30 in a few weeks. So happy birthday to the Yeti. But he doesn't have a contract next year. And, these guys that age well at running back, when I say age well, I mean like beyond age 27, 28, are the guys that have a pass catching role, right? And Derrick Henry certainly is not that type of back. So many years of greatness, but it seems like that time is coming to an end.
Yeah, and watching that game, like he got in the end zone, twice against the Dolphins, but the whole time you were like rooting for him, like, come on, buddy, get 5 yards. It's just like, it felt like such a struggle in that game. They just kept using him as a battering ram. But that's going to do it for this Dynasty episode. If you want to go be a part of the community, go to jointhefoot.com, and we will see you again next week. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.
Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a mid-size SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander boasts 3 spacious rows with available seating for up to 8. Its available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain, unlimited and platinum trims, delivers the power, acceleration, and efficiency so your family can take on any adventure. There's even a standard digital key, a panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen, so you always arrive on time. Live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.